Hello. It's so
Hey,
good to
there
see
you are.
you
Now I
guys.
can hear you.
Can you hear me
I can hear
okay?
you. Perfect.
Yes.
I can hear you
Oh,
properly.
Oh my goodness. What a pleasure it is to connect with you amazing, amazing people. Your work is so incredible. So first and foremost, I need to let everybody know who you guys are. And I'm sure most people will know who you are anyway, but just for those people that might not. So we have the beautiful Sarah Breskman Cosme, who is the author of A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis. And we have the beautiful JLF Jen Sullivan, Jen, who wrote Child of the Universe. Ladies, these two books, oh my goodness. So when Sarah and I connected for the first interview, I'd not read either of the books. So when you and I did that interview, it was just for me introducing me to your work. And so the first thing that I did after that interview was I went and ordered it. I went and ordered them both. And then it was Jen's book that arrived first. And so I said to my husband, can I have a bath? And he was like, oh, yeah, okay, that means I'm going to be gone for 2 hours. And so I left him with the kids and I got my book and I went and sat in the bath. I was like, oh, yeah. I started reading it, Jen, and something happened. I still don't really know. And I'm very curious to find out why it affected me in such a deep way. But from the second I opened that cover and read that first page, vroom, I was just in it. I was there. It's almost like I was hypnotized. I couldn't stop turning the pages. It was so compelling. The story itself is just incredible on so many levels. I mean, the actual story is incredible, but the fact that it's about Amun, Lemuria and Atlantis, which I'm fascinated in anyway. But it was just so powerful. And it felt like I was shaking as I was reading it. And every part of it that I read, I felt it as truth, absolute truth. And I didn't get out of the bath until I finished reading it. I couldn't get out. My husband put the kids to bed. They came in to say goodnight to me. And I said, good night, and carried on. And then when I got out of the bath, my husband was like, what's going on? I was like, you've got to read this book. It's amazing. And my husband was like, okay. And he read it and he was like, God, that was good, wasn't it? But oh my goodness. And then I think it was 2 days later, your book arrived, Sarah. So I was like, right, get it quick. See you later. And then I started reading yours. And to read them in that way as well, to read Jen's first. So I got like the essence of the story and all of the emotion around that story, but then to read yours next and to have all of that factual information that I really wanted around, how did this happen? How did that happen? And to get your additional sessions in there as well, Sarah, that links in with the whole fabric of everything, just absolutely blew my mind. And I have to be honest, since I've read both the books, I think about it a lot. I really do think about it a lot because there's some huge healing to be done there in the collective consciousness. And at this time, bringing your stories out for people to listen to, it's going to provide so much healing, and it's just at the right time when it's needed.
There's so many of us. We're not alone in our memories, in our recounts of these times, of these memories. So many of us are back here again right now to finally release and heal this trauma after thousands and thousands of years. And by doing that, it creates a shift in humanity. And that's why, one of the reasons why so many of us are here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And it's the right time now. And I'll come on to that a bit later because I have got some theories around that, see what you guys think. But first and foremost, I wanted to say to both of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you have done both in this lifetime and in also your previous lifetimes, particularly in the lifetime in Amun and in Atlantis, for what you have done for all of us as a whole on behalf of Team Light. Because when I sit and think about that, I mean, it's just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And the divinity of how it all links together, all of the little parts. I mean, when you think about this lifetime and you guys just meet each other and, you know, you're waiting for the kids to come out of school, at what point did you realize that there was some kind of connection there between the two of you?
Oh my gosh, I had no idea because Jen was a teacher. So I never thought that she would be into any of this stuff, like past life regression or anything like that. I don't think she actually was. I don't think she really thought about that stuff at all. And I had this thought pop into my mind. Now I know it was not my thought, but it was like, why don't you just ask her? You're always with her, you know, just ask her, see what she says.
Yeah. And Jen, at what point did you realize who you were and, you know, this connection between the two of you? Was it literally in that first session?
I think for me, it may go back a little bit more. Sometimes I think back when we first started really talking at the school, Sarah was pregnant with her third child. And I literally, like probably a day after she gave birth, became pregnant with my third child. And I think it was just that kind of, oh no, I think we were both pregnant at the same time. No, sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong timing. But I think it was around that time that we were both, she was at the end of her pregnancy and I was at the beginning. And we kind of just started meeting, and I don't know, there was something weird there that I felt was kind of like a pull between maybe the two fetuses. They were just maybe like trying to conspire to get us to work together when I look back, when I really look back. But I think the biggest point was definitely when she came to me and asked me about just the divine timing of it, if I would like to try something. And it was literally just as I was going through so much stuff with pharmaceuticals and things with, you know, just with medical doctors trying to get some relief for this condition I had. And I hadn't told anybody I was sick. I wasn't interested in letting people know. So when I look back at it, they probably made several attempts to get us to do this, but.
Absolutely. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And then when you did that first session, the pair of you, how did you feel after you did that first session?
My first session, I felt this unbelievable draining sensation coming from the back of my spine where it connects to my brain. It literally just felt like a cold liquid was just pulling down from inside of me and pulling down and pulling down. And I swear it just kept going. And then every time I would re-listen to my sessions as well, the same thing would happen. I noticed it was consistently every time I would hear that trigger word and I would go into hypnosis in the session and re-listen to it, it would just start happening all over again. Whether or not I was looking for it or wanted it, it just happened. So
that's amazing. I mean, just that in itself, the fact that, you know, having that condition that you had at the time with the tumor was what you connected with Sarah to do the sessions, but then actually as soon as the memories started to surface, it started to go. It's just absolutely incredible.
Inside my head anymore, I guess.
Yeah. And after you worked together for that first time, did it change your relationship at all after you'd done that first session? Did you start to feel a bit more connected?
Always felt really comfortable around her. I mean, I just, even though we would talk about just mundane things, I still really enjoyed our conversations, even though they weren't about, you know, stuff like spiritual things. But I am always so interested in all of this, as I'm sure you are too. And I was like, wow, I want to know more.
I mean, the sessions themselves are just mind-blowing. When you do so many of these sessions, you know, there's certain sessions that stand out, and Jen's sessions are those sessions, aren't they? The ones that you go, oh my goodness, I really want to work with this individual again, because this is just absolutely incredible.
Well, she was such a perfect subject because she didn't know anything about Dolores Cannon or about anything. And I remember, Jen, I asked you, I said, do you believe in aliens, just out of curiosity? And she said, I don't know. Something about it scares me. Now she obviously has a total different opinion on them, but it was, you know, she was a perfect subject because she didn't know anything about this. So it made what we uncovered so much more valid.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. And one of the things that I've thought about a lot is how the connection between the two of you. I'd love to know more about that, because Sarah, you were perfectly placed where you were, perfectly placed within the structures, the social structures of Atlantis, and actually in Atlantis itself.
Yes.
You were perfectly placed to enable Jen as Carla. Have I pronounced her name right, Carla? Yeah. As Carla to do what she needed to do to actually bring about the destruction of Atlantis at that point.
Right.
Had you not have been there, and had you not have had the soul that you have got, then that wouldn't have occurred. It needed to be somebody who was actually the light, but that was immersed in the darkness, pretending, you know, to be the darkness, but actually inside the core was light, to do what was done at that exact moment. And that's what I could just see when I was reading the book. I was like, oh my God, the divinity of this, how this has all been planned, is just absolutely mind-blowing.
We've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. I think we just do so many similar things over and over again.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Absolutely.
We've recounted so many past lives, in addition to what we've uncovered about Lemuria and Atlantis, where we have worked together before, and whether one of us ended up being burnt alive or the other one ended up being, just all the typical things that would happen to people through the course of the last couple of thousand years. You try to bring this stuff up to light, and we've seen it. And that's why I think this situation kind of works out the best, and we've gotten the furthest we've ever gotten at this point, is because now is the time for this. It's open, it's free. At least we are living in a place right now on this planet where we know we hopefully will not be burnt alive for this stuff. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I hope they're on their way to this.
Yeah.
But it's so true. This information couldn't have been released earlier. I mean, even back when Jen tried to live before in the 70s, I mean, it was just unacceptable, this information. It couldn't have been brought forth any other time. This is finally, we're at the right time for this information to come out.
It is the absolute perfect point in time. Absolutely. Because for a while now, people have been getting these memories come up. Yeah. And Sarah, we will have seen the same. People are coming to you saying, I can't understand why I've got this really intense phobia about this. And then you go into a session in Atlantis and you understand why they've got this really intense phobia. And so many people have already started that journey, haven't they? And then when they read these books, they'll be like, oh my God, I was there. Yeah. This explains so much. It explains so much for me. Prior to doing these sessions together, did either of you have any kind of a pull or a draw towards the legends of Atlantis or Lemuria?
No. I never even, it wasn't something that I ever really thought about, which is so funny, And I moved to the Keys just because I liked the warm weather. I didn't even know that I was supposed to be here. It's just funny how the universe works.
It's beautiful. It's a divine tapestry of such intricacies that our human brains can't even begin to understand it. When I read both of your books, I just really struggle to not cry, because when I think about how perfect it all is, it's just unbelievable. And actually what you're doing now, going already, oh my God, this is going to be emotional now. But when I think about what you're doing now to bring this information out at this time when it is so needed, and you're bringing about the healing of the people that are having those memories resurface from Atlantis, there's so much guilt attached to that. There's so much pain. And you're bringing about the healing of the people that have memories of the wave, of that absolute devastation of that coming in, and no warning, it just appeared. And both of these books, both of these stories are going to bring about that absolute healing for everybody. And the consciousness is ready. It's at the perfect point. And the fact that people are embedded within communities like QHHT, amongst people who are ready to accept it and then push it out even further, it's perfect. All of it's absolutely perfect.
I say it truly, like completely get like a surge of energy when you put it that way and you explain it that way. And I know that's exactly where it's going.
It's so powerful. I can't even begin to explain for somebody just reading both of the books how much it affects you. It really, really does.
Everything going on, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Everything going on now is like one big trigger, and people are feeling confused, like they've done this before. And so many things are similar to that past. And so they have this feeling of like, what is going on? I feel so triggered, but I don't know why. I feel so sad, but I don't know why. And I'm glad that these books can help shed light on and help these people that are so confused.
And literally, if you look at where Atlantis was right at the very end, that is where we are now as a society. That is exactly where we are now, with the vaccines and the masks and the using children to make people look younger. I mean, society in our day and age has got to that point. So this is the point now for it to go that evolutionary jump.
Yes.
And there was a quote as well that I wrote down somewhere, and I'm probably not going to be able to access it right now, but there was a quote, Jen, in your book that said that the virus in Atlantis was almost like a catalyst for them to make their next evolutionary jump, but they didn't have that additional ingredient, the compassion. It was the compassion that was needed to take them to that next level. And Jen, I wanted to ask you, what did the energy of Armon feel like, if you could describe it?
Oof, like I feel, when I think of it, I feel exhilarating, like tingles, like that first day of spring when you walk outside and you smell that air and it just smells different and you feel alive and you feel like you have a million things you're going to get done today and they're all just going to be wonderful, and you're going to see people you know and you're going to be greeted by them, and it's not going to be this pretense of fakeness that we surround ourselves with. It was genuine. You were really going to do things that you love to do. You were going to eat things you love to eat, and you were going to be around people who love to see you. And that was the general energy that was always there.
And what did it feel like to connect with those red crystals?
It's hard to explain, but it's very like, if you take goosebumps and you throw in maybe a couple of electrical charges, maybe stick a wet finger into a socket just for fun, that's the kind of energy I think it would start to transpire with. I've only recently started learning a bit about ASMR stuff through my two teenagers, but the more I look at what they're looking at, I feel that the tingling sensation that people are tapping into there is very connected to the tingling sensation that I was reliving when we would do these sessions. And I feel that there is a very deep connection there for people. I think that's one of the ways that they can tap back into this.
And do you meditate with crystals now?
Not
in this life.
I would like to. I have 4 young kids, and meditating right now is one of those things I get micro meditations at like 20 seconds. And if I'm holding a crystal, well then yes, I did it. But I plan on doing more of that though over the summer. I think the summer is a good time to get in touch with more of that. Make time for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, I wanted to ask you, can you remember what the energy of Atlantis was like at that time when you were the judge? What did it feel like there?
I mean, it feels a lot like what's going on right now, honestly, with, there's a lot of corruption, but you have to kind of survive in it and not make too big of a wave or you're found out. So to me, it brings back what's happening now, really.
Absolutely, that you've just said it in a nutshell there. And we are literally reliving the same. It's incredible. And my next question was actually about that, the parallels in society that we see now and Atlantis during those times. But Sarah, how did you keep your feelings hidden in that lifetime? Because you clearly, you weren't the same as them. You were different, and you were different for a reason, because you were placed there to be the perfect person that Carla needed at that time. But how did you survive in that toxic kind of environment?
I know, that's just all I knew. I mean, I even grew up that way in Atlantis. My father was really hard on me and my mom was not there. And I just grew up in this cold environment. And I was a lot less emotional in that life. In this life, I have a lot more emotions, but I felt totally different. Maybe it was also that I was a man in that life as well.
Yeah.
But I think I didn't know any different. So I just felt compassion that I could tell other people didn't have.
Yeah. And the connection between you two when you saw each other.
Mm.
So when Jen describes it in her book, she describes it as like a mind switch where for a second, a point in time, you switched minds. What did that feel like? What did you feel was going on there?
I mean, I didn't know what was happening to me when I saw her, as far as I can remember from doing, that session. Jen probably has more memory because I think she's looked into it more.
Jen, how did that feel?
I felt that it was similar to some of the things that I had felt working with my grandmother when I had been, young in Amun and was being trained and learned many of these things. I think the reason that we were able to connect so easily just in that moment with the eyes and in that chaos was because I think her genetic line, or perhaps her soul line, was connected back to one of the main people who started Atlantis. And because of that continuation of that line versus the continuation of my line, which went to Amun and prospered and grew, I think that was just this connection we had, that it went back to that first ship crashing and us being put here and having to create these colonies and everything going wrong. And it just brought us back and activated it almost. When I even think about it now, I get even more, so much energy that jumps out at me when I think about different things from the book. But that's the closest I felt to it, was that it was like a reactivation of something from the long forgotten past between the two of us.
And Jen, can you please put my mind at rest and let me know that you ended up connecting back with Rio and that connection was made again? Because as a mother, when I read that, I remember, I'm going to go now, but I was in the bath just sobbing.
Yeah, I know.
Because you were ripped away from your baby.
And it's interesting. That was the child I was pregnant with when Sarah and I were pregnant at the same time as well. I think that was when I look back, that's probably one of the big things I noticed about, maybe that's when they were trying to get us to start talking more about this stuff, was when she was conceived and about to become a reality. And I also noticed after she was born, I had this, even for a couple of years, this crazy, I know mothers are overprotective, but I was like, do not touch, breathe, look at my child, no one, keep her away from everything. I was so afraid something was going to happen to her. And it made so much sense when I went into the sessions. I really was able to release a lot of that angst and just crazy maternal energy that you get when you're that mama lion and you don't want to see anything happen to your child, especially if you get a second chance like that.
And how did she manage to find her way out of the in-between? Because she was trapped there for a while, wasn't she? And you couldn't contact her. How did she?
I think she's still really young, so I don't know from her perspective truly yet where or what she's been doing. I think when she gets a little bit older, I'd like her to do some sessions and see where that was accurately for her. But I feel that she has possibly been floating around for a while and guiding in that floating. I don't know if she's been incarnate again before this lifetime with me, but my guess is, my instinct on it is that she's been waiting for things to kind of line up for the right way. And in the meantime, just kind of helping and floating and doing her thing. And one step at a time, clawing her way out of there. Because as much as you want to free people and as much as you want to bring them back to you, it's entirely them. They have to get to that point, and you can only show them and educate them and give them what you know, and you can't force them to do it. So whatever it was, we met at the right time again.
Isn't that incredible though, that you were on the precipice of finding out who you truly are, and that's the point where she comes back just in time for you to find out who she is.
No coincidences.
Wow.
It amazes me when I look back at the last 3 years of what we've been doing, and I look at the connections and I look at everything, and there's no doubt in my mind there is some greater force pulling everything into place here. Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Definitely.
And I wanted to ask you, Jen, as well. Are you aware of why it is that the Queen of Armon was not allowed to take a partner? So obviously you were allowed to procreate, but why was it that that female line was encouraged not to have a relationship, have the traditional family unit?
My instinct was that it went back to the early days of colonization, where the people who would come from the home planet and began the civilization there in Amun were looking to do more in vitro fertilization and empower people to raise their children and not be dependent on each other in any circumstance, to have to fulfill certain roles in a child's life, that it was more of a community upbringing. And in that fashion, I think they continued it. And then over the course of tens of thousands of years, until we get to the point where the continent is destroyed, I think it was just possibly a misinterpretation of those rules and the beginning of that kind of led into it. As you see a lot of cultures do that over time, you know, things kind of get a little misinterpreted and become very strict, very, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? There's like a very strict way of doing things because we have that institution now and tradition.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that if you look at times before history, that a lot of the women were actually in charge, because they would carry knowledge about which plants would kill you and which plants were medicine. They would carry this knowledge in their subconscious, and they could pass it on from mother to daughter. And so they were the rulers, kind of the leaders, and they would develop a really kind and compassionate society because of this knowledge and because of the way they ruled, until that was overtaken.
Yeah, exactly. I also wanted to ask Sarah, so the lifetime where this is very complex for me as well, because I would have seen this session had I have been there, but I couldn't go. But you went to Egypt as a group of QHHT practitioners and you had a session there. And that was when you learned that at that key point where Carla was becoming Queen Carla, you were living the lifetime of a boy that then got sent out on a quest, if you like, to find out more about Atlantis. And you found yourself in front of the Sphinx, and you had this incredible experience in connecting with the Sphinx that made you so much more wiser and happier and spiritual. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel that particular experience, was that a parallel lifetime to the judge?
Yes.
They were both happening at the same time. And
it's so weird how that can happen, isn't it?
It does though, doesn't it? And that in and of itself is incredible, that you've got those two key lifetimes in you know, one looking for more information on Atlantis and one actually being embedded within Atlantis at that point. How did that feel though, having that session?
Oh my gosh.
Uncovering that information whilst you were in Egypt.
It was a really weird experience, because the person that was doing the regression on me, this strange energy took them over and like gently and lovingly put them onto the ground, and they couldn't get up until the session was over. And someone had to step in, and I had no idea at all. That the session was really incredible for me, honestly, because it was so neat and fascinating to go underneath the Sphinx. I still think about it all the time, because this like light went into the back of my mind, like all the way to the back. and it was a really weird feeling. And then I heard like this boom in my ears, and that's when I felt like dropping into this area. It was really fascinating for me to relive this experience.
Yeah.
And just feel what it felt like, you know, to figure out all my problems, basically.
This must have been such an exciting journey for the two of you to have all of this unfolding and like being given another piece here and then another piece here. And you must be thinking, oh my goodness, this is incredible. That must have opened your levels of consciousness up even more whilst all this was going on.
And it's funny because I didn't even think about it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And then it always seemed to dawn on me like, wow, this is being divinely led.
And Jen, so when I read the story within your book about Commander Atoms, who is also referred to as Adam, and Evie, and obviously straight away you're thinking, oh my goodness, that's where the story in the Bible of Adam and Eve comes from. And there's even the story of Cassian killing Orion, which also mirrors Cain and Abel. And there's also a prayer on Amun that said that is very, very similar to the Lord's Prayer, which is also from the Bible as well. So I just wanted your take on that. You know, what were your feelings around that?
It's interesting because I definitely noticed that in our sessions as I was re-listening to a lot of the recordings that there were a lot of biblical undertones and things. And I am definitely not a religious person. I have studied world religions in depth in university, but it was never anything I kind of felt a strong pull towards. In fact, if anything, I kind of always felt like perhaps maybe this was a little misinterpreted over time as well. And maybe we're just following rules that are not really meant for us to be followed. And I decided that they needed to be in the book from the sessions just because I think that they held a lot there, that it said a lot without really needing to say a lot, that you need to look very carefully at how things begin and then how people want to kind of manipulate you and kind of use their power over you by saying that this is the only way that this could have happened, and that was Adam and that was Eve and that was a snake and this is how it happened. But it's a form of control to make people think that's the only way that could have happened. So
yeah,
that was what that was for me, including all of that. I think there's a lot there that religion oppresses, and I think for people right now the most important thing to do is to truly just find your true self and find your own answers to things, find your own guidance in things rather than look for someone else to tell you what's right or wrong.
I have to say, the both of you, sorry to interrupt there, Sarah, but the energy of both of you ladies is just truly magnificent. Just, you've got the most incredible energy, and, you know, speaking to you in this way, it's just, I just feel so grateful, such gratitude. Sarah, how do you feel about sort of uncovering the fact that you wrote the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that much of the stuff that's in there was from that lifetime?
I didn't believe it at all. And then I had another client come and said the same thing. So I thought, oh my gosh, is this real? You know, did I really do that? It's
Wow.
still hard for me to believe, honestly.
But isn't it amazing?
When we uncovered that, and she said, you know, and her higher self said, oh yeah, you got all this information and you put it into a book that a lot of that is now in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, although it's totally been changed, you know, and different. I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then when the second person said the same thing, I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they don't even know I'm writing this book, you know? So it was fascinating.
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's things like that that just make my heart sing, and it makes doing what we do for a job just so rewarding, because I mean, it's just incredible what you can tap into.
Well, that's what I want. I'm sorry. But when Jen was saying it's a great time to look into ourselves and see who we are, one trick that they gave us through finding out more about Amun was that they used to go into these buildings where they would stare at the flower of life pattern. And that's where they would find their answers. So we found out that you can literally just get the flower of life pattern and stare at it, either while meditating or just, ask a question, stare at it. And you can find the answers to questions. It's like a key that unlocks something in your brain. It heals your brain on certain levels. So those different patterns that they used to use in Lemuria, they're really a great tool to use nowadays. So you can just get that pattern and meditate with it and see what you can uncover for yourself.
I am totally doing that tonight. I'm doing that. I'm totally going to be doing that tonight. Jen, so I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a bit more about the connection between yourself and Devika? I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly. Devika, the girl that came to live at the judge's house?
You got it, definitely. I've always kind of felt the need to call her Devika.
Devika, yeah.
Feel free to pronounce it anyway. It was just kind of the name that kept coming up. It wasn't a name I'd ever really heard before too, so it was a bit weird for me. But it fit. It was who she was. I don't know who she is. I don't know if I've met her in this lifetime. I don't feel that I have yet. Perhaps that's what's happening next in my life. I think there is something that just goes way back deep, the way it did with Sarah's with the judge when he was a child as well, that there is just there's a whole nother connection I feel that is beyond our genetics and beyond our soul, that connects us all, and it allows us to have all these separate lives at once. It allows us to have this non-linear time. It allows us to have so much, but it also is really hard to understand from our like human perspectives as well, because we're so consistent about what everything needs to be. So I'm interested to see where the connection with Devika does go, what opens up for us in the future. I'm making a huge move next week with my life, and I think that this is probably the time where she will end up coming into my life. If not, she's already been here and I just can't say it. Sometimes that happens too. Sometimes it's so in front of your face you just can't see it until you're ready to make that connection.
And if we look at that, the divinity of that, the fact that she was placed again, same as Sarah, the three of you together, placed in exactly the right position, so that she was in the right place at the right time to take that knowledge forwards before you made your exit. I mean, that's just incredible. So she has to be somebody, she has to be a part of your soul group. She has to be somebody that's very, very connected to you.
Very much so.
And that energy that you felt between the pair of you, what did that feel like?
I remember at first we didn't feel like I kind of felt nothing for her. I kind of looked at her and thought a little bit of, interesting. Why is she catching my attention? But at the same time, like, when am I going to die already? I remember at that point in that lifetime, it was just like this weird, fluffy part of the end of my life where everything else had just been torture in between. And now I was living this weird life of somewhat luxury. And here is this young woman who doesn't seem to have any issues, who is very standoffish. So I think our initial encounters weren't very productive, but I know after the tragedy happened with her family, after our connection where I fell and sprained my ankle and we had that touch where it was just a quick brush, but it was physical energy that was created between the two of us. I don't know. That's definitely, I've seen where she goes in our sessions. I know what happens to her line. I'm actually working with Sarah right now on our second book.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait.
And I don't want to ruin it, but there is a way more there that happens with her once she leaves, and her line and what happens. And it's all in your part of the world as well.
Well, that was one of my questions. One of my questions was, tell me, do you know anything about what happens to her? Like, how did this continue? But if that's in the next book, then let's leave that as a...
She was up there around your area, a little bit off the coast. I feel that there was an island off the coast of Ireland, somewhere around there, that's gone now.
Yeah.
That had this green sea around it. And I've kind of looked around a little bit to see if something fits up to it. And there is an island apparently that was off the coast of Ireland called High Brazil that I've heard about. And it kind of fits the pattern of what we're seeing in our sessions. So hopefully we'll give you some more info about all that when we're done with the books at the end of the year.
Sarah, can you remember as the judge what it was when you saw Carla, Jen, on the TV and you were in Atlantis? What was it that made you think, I've got to get her out of there? She's going to come and live near me and I'm going to take some walks with her every night. What was it? Was it the fact that she was still in that facility and you remembered her from being as a child?
It was like that same thought that I had when I asked Jen if she wanted to do a session with me. It was just like, just that little feeling, that little nudge. It was the same from what I can remember.
Wow. That's incredible. And oh my goodness, you have no idea, Jen, how much I have sobbed over that scene. And I've read the book many times now and I'm filling up already. You're going to have to bear with me. But the scene when you go into, you know what you need to do. You instinctively know that it's time now to say, oh, I'll help you with the crystal. And then, because you've seen the look in your mother's eyes and you've got the message. When you go and connect with that crystal, what do you feel was the reason that crystal backfired? Because for me, I sob because I just keep thinking, and it makes me go now, that the crystal was so happy to see you and connect with your energy after being abused in such a terrible way for so long, doing all these terrible things, probably against its will, that the second it connected with your energy, it just went. And it was like almost love. It was love that took it all down. And the absolute karmic impact of that. I think I spend a long time thinking about that. The fact that from a very young age, you saw that door in meditation and you opened it, so you got an idea of what was coming. But then the guys from Atlantis literally took your entire world, everything away from you. And then you were in that position and then did the same thing. But when you opened the door, it was light.
It was light.
What do you feel it was that made that crystal backfire?
It was predestined. It was necessary. I feel that I had no going into it, I knew what was going to happen. I knew where we were going. I knew it was all set up and ready for me. I just needed to have that contact with it again. That's what we had been waiting for. It was what my mother said I needed to stay alive for, what my grandmother prodded me to stay away from her and stay alive for, that it needed to happen. It was beyond me. There was nothing I really needed to do except go back to that place that I had been trained to go back to. And it's why it had been said in my earlier days as well. It needed me to have that familiarity with it, to know that this is where we were going with it. And I knew from it as well, opening the door, it wasn't going to be a peaceful thing. I knew it wasn't going to be something that was going to bring happiness and joy to everyone, but I knew it was going to be a release, and that was what was needed. Like, the heaviest word I could put there is release.
And then through the crystal responding to the love it felt for you and that connection, it just brought the whole thing down, because it just reminded the crystal who it was. And I just see it as like it's love. It's the love, that the connection that you two felt that brought all that big house of cards down.
And it's so interesting you bring up that point of love, though, because that's something I've really noticed in a lot of my sessions. You know, we say love, we say we connect back to this divine love, the love of a mother for a child. And like, we understand what love is, but the love I think that we're seeing in these sessions and the love that we're connecting with is very different. It's more than love. It's just the only word that we have that's close enough to explain that feeling. And it's more than that, though. We need a separate word for it. We need to know what that connection is that brings us back to our origin point. And that is really what I have felt through a lot of it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just felt like that was something that kept being very consistently brought up in our sessions, is this option of love. I'm not option, but this idea of love. And it's more than
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's oneness. that feeling of
Definitely.
oneness. How did you cope, Jen? How did you cope? How did you get through that terrible time? I mean, reading that, I mean, how did you do it?
I think we all have things in our lives that we need to get through and we need to do. And in so many ways, the reason I saw this in this lifetime was because I was having a very difficult time in this life. I was dealing with a lot of things that were very overwhelming, that were crushing. And that was why I was able to tap into that and to have that as almost a comforting source. Like, you've been through worse, you will be fine, you will get through this. It was probably mind numbing. I probably went nuts at some point while I was being held against my will in Atlantis. I'm sure there's no way you could spend 60 years and not lose a big piece of yourself. But I think at the end of the day, it's just the sheer will to stay alive and to make something better happen that kind of gets you through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finish the mission.
I just want to personally thank you on behalf of everybody for, you know, the part that you've played and what you've done.
Thank you.
Because wow, it's almost too much to even begin to consider, and you actually lived it. And I wanted to ask Sarah, you know, when you were the judge, so the last place that we saw you in the book was you were pulled away from Queen Carla. Carla was taken one way, you were taken to like a prison, some facility somewhere. Are you aware of your last moments as the judge? How you experienced that explosion of the crystals?
It's funny because when I recounted in the when I was being regressed, I didn't get up to that part. All I knew was that I had a heart attack. That's all I knew. And then when I was working with Jen and asking her questions about that life, she saw it, but I didn't. When I was doing the regression, when someone was doing it on myself, I didn't get to see that part.
Okay. And Jen, do you know the cave with the red crystals? Did that go down with Amun, with Lemuria, or is it still somewhere? Is it at the bottom of the ocean?
I want to say it's still there, but part of me knows it's not. I think it most likely was destroyed or it eroded, but perhaps the crystals are not that very far from it. I think there's a lot of strange things that happen in the Pacific Ocean that people are still unable to explain. And the same thing happens in a lot of areas of the Atlantic Ocean. And I think that the crystals are underneath the ocean in those places. And that's why you see so much strange activity happen. There's still,
especially the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. Apparently there's a lot of crystals there and the technology. And that's why when sometimes things go haywire, people go into a different realm by accident almost.
And do you feel that those red crystals were something bespoke to your home planet? So like a specific crystal to your home planet? Or would we be able to find something like that on Earth? Like, for example, a ruby or a garnet?
It's funny, we're actually putting that all into the next book. We had the
right, okay.
question as you, and we've gone into session and we have found quite a bit more information about the home planet and the uses that they had for the red crystals there, and what kind of caused the home planet to need to come to Earth and set up these other colonies because of the red crystals and the powers that they were mining and taking from other planets there. So the second book's actually going to go into a lot more detail about the red crystals and their interaction with us.
And it's so funny because we know we're going to write another book, and I've had so many clients come talk about red crystals on this other planet, and they haven't read my book. They haven't read Jen's book either. So it's just like, here we go again, just being given all this information again to basically to get it out.
Isn't
it's
it?
So fascinating.
It's just wonderful, isn't it?
It's exciting.
How the universe, it just sets everything up for you.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. And there was one thing, and I've mentioned this to both of you guys, so it's not going to come as a surprise, but when I was reading the books, I had this real strong feeling about the legend, the prophecy of the two sisters of Una and Isa. And I had this real strong feeling around, you know, are you two guys the reincarnated souls of those two sisters? Because you have, at this point in time, gone through this huge process whereby at this point in time, through reincarnating over and over and over again, you are now bringing together the souls of the people who died in Atlantis, who are now relearning all of their memories, and they're healing, they're dealing with it, they're beginning that process of healing and recovering those memories. And you're bringing together all of the people that have that memory, that feeling of the wave and the devastation of Lemuria and Amun. And so you're bringing all of those people together right now.
You just gave me the goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
When I started thinking about that, I thought, there's something here. There's something here. Because Jen mentions Una as her spirit guide. And I thought to myself, is that literally a part of her from another lifetime? Is that like a part of her multidimensional self? And it does make me wonder, because Isa was taken, was it into Mount Shasta? It was around that area, wasn't it? And there's a connection there for you as well, Sarah.
Yes.
So I just thought to myself, I think the legend, the prophecy is you two. And that through the ages, this thread, because it's a thread, isn't it? Throughout the incarnations, it's not just one lifetime. It's the work that you've done throughout the ages. At this point, you're bringing all those souls. I've just got goosebumps now. You're bringing all those souls together because they're ready. The Atlantis guys are ready to heal and move forwards. And the guys from Lemuria are ready to heal, and they're ready to welcome in that new earth, that new vibration of being right now at this time. And that's what you're doing.
I love that.
Truly.
I hope so. But yes, we are ready. People are ready to heal this. They've been trying for so many times over and over again, and the time is ripe for them to really heal this now.
Yeah, it is. It's perfect.
In our sessions that we were having, when we were getting the information about Una and Isa, it was a very confusing thing for me to kind of comprehend, because I couldn't understand what they wanted me to get out of that. And it kept coming up over and over and over and over again. And I thought I understood it, but then I was like, what more is it? And the answer we kept getting in our sessions was, it's right in front of your face. And I still didn't get it. And it literally, you pointing it out to us going, oh, they were talking about us. Okay.
That's what I got. I got that feeling so strong. I was like, these guys are the two sisters. They're the two sisters.
It's truly it. There's so much that we did, and we did it very quickly too, probably in like 6 to 8 months of like getting everything together. We finished and published the books, you know, while we raised like 7 children as well. So that was definitely a feat on its own. But there's a lot of things about it that, you know, we wrote it based on what the sessions were. We didn't fully understand all of it, and now the readers are coming back to us and making all these points and showing us connections. And I swear I get like an email like every day pointing out a new thing to me that shows us a different thing that was connected. And things like this, really, they're just reaffirming. You know, you look at it and you're like, how could it not be? How could any of this not be? So yeah, very, very good point. Thank you for bringing that to us.
And the 2 books are so, I would recommend everybody buy them and read them, because everybody needs to know that. You know, it's part of our history. It's a part of what affects us now. We need to learn about what happened before us, and that knowledge up to this point has been denied, hasn't it? We've not been told about this, but it's coming out now in these ways, and it's so beautiful. It is, both books have affected me so deeply, and I really truly thank both of you from the bottom of my heart for the journey that you have been on throughout planet Earth and the histories of time, to bring about this process of evolution that we're now in. We're in it now. And I wanted to say to Sarah, if you ever want a practitioner to help take you through any of the experiences, I will absolutely put my hand up to do
Oh, that would be fun.
that. If you ever
I
need
love
any
it.
help, if you ever need any help in
Thank
any
you.
way, I'm there.
Okay.
It's been the honor of my absolute lifetime to meet both of you today and to have this opportunity to talk to you. I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. Is there any final message that you'd like to give to people regarding your books or the message?
Well, I think one thing that's important to know is that humanity doesn't evolve in a straight line. We evolve in cycles. And even though everything looks bad when we look around ourselves right now, we're actually doing better. Just to keep that in mind, that things will be so much better after we go through this turbulence.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jen, is there anything that you would like to say to everybody that's read Child of the Universe and that's listened to what you went through, that journey?
Yes, definitely. I feel right now is a very, very important time. I feel like we're all standing on the edge of a diving board, ready to jump into something way bigger than any of us that's going to envelope us all. And I think the most important thing you can do right now for most people, especially people who aren't as familiar with things in the metaphysical world and whatnot, is to really take the moment now, especially in any kind of solitude you can find over the summer. Find yourself. You don't know who you really are until you start figuring out who you were. And that means before you were you, where you came from, where your soul has been. You need to find this stuff out for yourself, because there is so much in your life you will repress and you will be angry about and be confused about until you begin to figure out who you truly, truly are and how far you go back and where you've been and where you're going. And one of the best ways to do that, I have found truly, has been to sit. If I feel that, too much social media, there's been too much screens, too much of that going on over the last year, take a moment, get something that's on paper and read it. Find something that you think will inspire you. It may not have to be my book. It may not have to be Sarah's book, but look for something this summer that inspires you. Look for something that will make you, tap back in to what we've been so far removed from for so long, and really make it your mission this summer to be that person, to tap into it and to go in that road and to find what it is that you feel is missing in your life. Because I know so many people feel that they're meant for something bigger, that something great is upon them, and this is it. It's the time to sit there and to focus on you and to get in touch with you.
That is absolutely the best advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jen, Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been an honor. And I can't wait to read your next book. Oh my goodness. Tell me as soon as it's out. I'll be number one. Oh, tell me. I can't wait to read it. And if either of you ever need anything at all, I am absolutely here for you.
Oh.
I'm sending you all my love and my respect. And I will hopefully connect with you again soon. Take
Always
care.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye.
Sarah. Bye, Jen. Bye.